Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd with your host Mark. Today I'd like to talk about the 1984 movie Repo Man. Repo Man was directed by Alex Cox. I think it was his first film, it may not have been, but it was one of his early ones, and it was actually produced by Mike Nesmith, who was one of the Monkees. Stars Harry Dean Stanton and Emilio Estevez, again one of his first earliest roles. He never really did that well, Emilio Estevez, compared to say Charlie Sheen, but he was always solid. He was good in say Stakeout. There was a Mickey take of like Lethal Weapon kind of films called Loaded Weapon. He was in that. It's pretty good in that, and he's been in other things. He's not bad at all. This is a rather great film. When I saw it, I was like late teens, nearly 20. And my friends really latched onto this film. It was one of those films that became the soundtrack of our lives. In that sounds a bit pretentious, isn't it? In that the quotes, it's so many great quotes and lines in this film that we'd endlessly quote it. It would like get mixed in there with the way, I don't know, Monty Python and a few other movies kind of become your cultural DNA when you're that age. I'm sure. If you've gone through that, you'll know what I mean. If you've gone through late teenagehood, you kind of know what I mean. There are certain films you and your friends are always referencing. The Repo Man was one of the big ones for us. It's a punky kind of film. In both its soundtrack, there are lots of really great, mostly American punk bands form the soundtrack, but it's got a sort of happy anarchic feel to it without bashing over your head. There are things in it that I've seen elsewhere. For example, there's things like food is called food. The tins on the food, the tins on the beer, just as a label saying beer, which is kind of funny. It was used. The similar idea was used in John Carpenter's They Live, and it's funny when you watch things like Big Brother and stuff like that, reality shows now, where they label so nothing gets promoted as a brand. They just stick labels over it saying beer and beans and things like that, which is kind of funny if you watch a film like this. Now, this starts with a young Emilio Estevez plays a young disaffected punk called Otto, who thinks he's really a rebel and angry with the world and stuff like that. And somehow he gets mixed up with Repo Man, who he thinks is sort of square and nerdy, I think. But he realises they're all completely out to lunch. They're way more anarchic and out of it than he is. And he likes the money, so he becomes a Repo Man. It's just basically these guys being a Repo Men. But then this Ford Chevy, Ford Malibu is being driven around by this nutty guy who's absolutely fantastic. I can't remember his name, but he's a really fantastic voice actor. Hold on, let me have a look. J. Frank Parnell is the character played by Fox Harris, who's really good in this. He played this scientist with like really thick glasses with one eye blacked out, just driving around sort of sweating and looking completely out of it. And there's something weird in the boot of his car. More than once, the car boot opens and people get converted into dust and leave steaming boots and stuff. And it's some glowing thing, which like makes you think of Pulp Fiction if you've seen Pulp Fiction. Also, it makes me think of an old film called Kiss Me Deadly, where there's a glowing thing in a box that destroys people if they open it. It's a kind of well-worn trope, I think, but this was one of the films that made it that well-worn trope, I'd say. There are other people in it that are kind of cool. I'm trying to think. It's not Keith Richards. There's a guy that's a bit like Keith Richards. Not Keith Richards. Keith David. But it isn't him, I don't think. I can't remember what his name is now. But these guys are completely nutty. They're all on speed. They're robbing cars, and there's a great, really terrific performance here by a guy called Tracy Walter, who plays a guy called Miller. Tracy Walter, he's this actor that you probably know if you saw, but he doesn't come across. You don't see him in many things. I'll tell you what, he was, the main thing I can think apart from this film is he was like the Joker's sidekick in the 1989 Batman, Jack Nicholson's Joker. His main sidekick, didn't say, I think he was called Bob in that. That was this guy. I also remember him from an old American TV show called Best of the West, which was pretty good. And he played this I think his name was Frog in that. He played like a sort of slightly loopy sidekick to the bad guy, nutty for a henchman kind of thing. And in this, he's really good. He's spouting this stuff, about talking about the cosmic unconsciousness and how things are all interrelated, and how people, he says, do you know how people are into weirdness right now? And he spouts off stuff. And mostly it was his lines that often get quoted by people, by me and my friends, for example. He's really good in this, really interesting. Really colourful kind of film. It's set in LA, but it's kind of got an open feel to it. The colour palette it's not lots of different bright colours, but it's got a bright feel, well lit, maybe even overlit, and there's kind of cool stuff in it. There's all sorts of referencing going on, like what's in the boot of this car. We don't know if it's aliens or something, and there's also one of the Miller, who I've talked about, who was played by Tracy Walter. He talks about, is it a time machine? The UFOs, maybe they're time machines, maybe they're this, maybe they're that. And there's a scene at the end where the car kind of looks like a UFO. So you're thinking, is that a time machine? Is that a UFO? What's everyone want this car for? It's never resolved. It doesn't really matter. That's not the point. There was also a sequel to this film, I think, called Repo Chick, that came out only a year or two ago. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard anything about it, so I assume it's not great or not worth commenting on. Alex Cox looked like he was going to be a really fantastic director to watch, in the same way Terry Gilliam looked like he was going to be a great, fantastic director to watch, or even Tim Burton. But it didn't turn out that way. Nothing after this film really set a mark on it as a great film. This does, though. This does. I got the Blu-ray. It looked really, really nice. It also came with an extra copy, which is an infamous TV version. When they wanted to put it on TV, they were going to dub it all out, and Alex Cox asked to be involved in that work. And he produced this quite intentionally hilarious version where rude words are replaced by sort of weirder phrases, like people, instead of a common curse word, he uses the word melon farmer. You're a melon farmer. And it became, I think, known as the Melon Farmer cut. That was on the Blu-ray, and that was kind of interesting to watch. It was a very rough cut, though. It was straight from a TV transfer, I think. So it had nothing on the original Blu-ray, but it's kind of interesting to watch because of the weird dubbing they put on it. Strangely enough, it's also a slightly longer version, so they must have put extra scenes in. I liked it. I thought it was a fun, great film. I've seen it many times, but it's probably been 15 years since the last time I saw it, before this more recent watch. But I remembered it all very clearly. As I say, one of the real standouts to this was the character driving the car, who's played by Fox Harris. Great voice, really terrific voice. I'll put a little bit on the end of the podcast so you can hear it, actually. Okay, I think I've said all I really want to say about that. I think I'd give this something like 75 out of 100. Really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. Okay then, bye.
J. Frank Parnell. You ever feel as if your mind had started to erode?
No.
Ever been to Utah?
Sir, I represent the Helping Hand Acceptance Corporation.
Radiation. Yes, indeed. You hear the most outrageous lies about it. Half-baked gogglebox do-gooders telling everybody it's bad for you. Pernicious nonsense. Everybody could stand 100 chest x-rays a year. They ought to have them, too. When they canceled the project, it almost did me in. One day my mind was literally burst. The next day, nothing. Swept away. But I'll show them. I had a lobotomy in the end.
Lobotomy? Isn't that for loonies?
Not at all. A friend of mine had one. Designer of the neutron bomb. You ever hear of the neutron bomb? Destroys people. Leaves buildings standing. Fits in a suitcase. So small. No one knows it's there till blammo. Eyes melt, skin explodes, everybody dead. It's so immoral working on a thing can drive you mad. That's what happened to this friend of mine. So he had a lobotomy. Now he's well again.
What kind of car does your friend drive?
Chevy Malibu.
This is really a nice old car. Why don't you let me drive?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I mean, don't you feel funny?
Why should I feel funny? The two hemispheres are fundamentally at odds. Hemisphere. You know, it's strange. I do feel funny.
What you got in the trunk?
You don't want to look in there.
Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say like plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp out of the blue, no explanation. No point in looking for one either. It's all part of a cosmic unconsciousness.
You eat a lot of acid, Miller, back in the hippie days?
Sell that car and send me your money. You don't need that car.
Put it on a plate, son. You'll enjoy it more.
Couldn't enjoy it anymore, Mom. This is swell.
What's this?
Charming friends you got there, Otto.
Thanks. I made it myself.
I had a lobotomy in the end.
Lobotomy. Isn't that for loonies?
Not at all. A friend of mine had one.
I do my best thinking on the bus. That's how come I don't drive, see?
You don't even know how to drive.
I don't want to know how. I don't want to learn, see? The more you drive, the less intelligent you are.